Right, so crossing over, sort of somewhat like interweaving storylines, all about people crossing over to the United States from sort of like Turkey and Mexico and Middle East and things. And obviously Harrison Ford's in the movie. It's an okay movie. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's terrible. I think it's sort of just in the middle of, you know, great and awful. It's just it's sort of meshed in the thing of just okay. I mean, I think there are things in it that work quite well. I think there are things that don't work that well. Um, I don't really get the point. I don't even understand how it's even been passed a bit about 9/11. I thought that was quite bad, if I'm honest. I always find it quite hilarious the way that these people, filmmakers, put them in to try and say something, but it just doesn't say anything. It just makes you confused and think, but hang on, what's that about? I don't get it. And it's just laughable. It's just like, oh, we're trying to make a point. It's like, no, you're not. It's a pile of shit. 9/11 was a really bad thing that happened, and you can't make some statement to say it's okay. I'm sorry, but you can't. And the point that part of the film, the point of the film that happens, sort of gets carried on a little bit more, and then you think, oh god, here we go again. And then he's trying to sort of talk about it again, and you just think, ugh. It's just crash bangingly terrible. And I hated that bit of the film, if I'm honest. I thought that was dreadful. And it's just sort of, I don't get it, and I don't really want to talk about it anymore. So forget about that. There's too many characters in this film. I mean, what's his name is in it for about, I don't know, how long? Pretty much hardly any time. That guy who was in the Book of Mormon, and he was in Pixels. I forget what his name is, but he's the guy who shouts loud and he's like overweight and a bit fat. Sorry, but he is. Um, but he turns up for one scene and he's gone. So gone. And apparently this movie's quite old, from 2008. Even though it says it came out in 2009, but I guess it was made in 2007 and came out in 2008. Anyway, who cares? Anyway, the whole thing is that it's, well, just a bit under 2 hours long, and it's all documenting all these storylines that kind of connect, because there's it's like people who are supposed to not be in the country and people who are actually sort of can make something being approved into the country. And obviously Harrison Ford works as a customs officer and stuff like that. Well, it's all not customs, but it's all deportation kind of thing. Um, so you have that, and then you have all these sort of, like I say, storylines, but some of them working well, some of them kind of don't. I mean, I don't really get why the Jim Sturgis thing had to be weaved in as the part of, oh, he's trying to get approved because he wants to be religious work. I think they could have cut that out. I'm sorry, but I think they could have. I mean, it's a lot better than the sort of 9/11 religious blah de blah Middle East garbage that was in a bit of the film earlier. But I mean, it was better than that, like I say, but it just felt a bit like, oh, but hold on. He's connected to the Australian girl, and an Australian girl's trying to get the visa, well, the green card she calls it, and then you know, it just feels like a bit like, like a lovely cake, and it put too many things on the cake, and it just becomes a little bit of a mess. That's what the film feels a bit like. It's like, oh yeah, I just keep throwing all this stuff at it, and it's not like to the point where it's terrible, but it just becomes a bit of a mess. And then you think, but hold on, like you haven't really explained quite a few things. Like, oh, the people who are from Turkey, blah de blah, now they're going to be American citizens and things and that. And then there's some people who've been born here, but then part of their family has to leave. And it just, there are bits of it that just kind of like, yeah, you kind of just went snip, 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 and cut some stuff out. Um, I think with Ray Liotta, I don't like a particular scene because it involves rape, which is disgusting. even though you see the aftermath is pretty terrible. And I don't understand, why would someone honestly get back into a relationship with somebody after being raped? I mean, come on! I mean, this is like some idiot with a scriptwriter going, "Ooh, this'll be juicy. Their romance carries on because she was raped." No! No, 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 no! You don't understand character development at all! That's dreadful! And I think also it feels a bit like Love Actually, but then trying to sort of take away all the romantic elements and the comedy elements, and then you've made a film set in Los Angeles about crossing over, quote unquote. And there's even a bit where they go to the American ceremony, blah de blah citizen thing, and they start singing the national anthem, and then there's the whole thing about it. Just, I don't want to sound like I'm being patronising, but it does come across a little bit like, oh, let's just shove it in your face that, oh, you know, there are people who do bad things, but they still get into the country. I'm just like, really, really. I just think that's a bit of a joke and a bit misguided. I mean, there's a character in it who's Chinese and robs sort of initiated into a gang and wants to rob and has to be part of their gang or their clique. And then he decides not to do the sort of thing after there's a shootout. And then the guy leaves him be, and then you can do something better. But he's still done a bad deed. So it's a bit like, oh, come on now. What, so now they're dead? So you won't have any more sort of things of, ooh, I want to be a gang member. Ooh, whoo. Like, I don't get that. I find that a bit like, yeah, whatever. But overall, you know, it's fine. I don't think it's terrible.